Why is earning a living as a composer so difficult? Why is it so hard? This video hopefully is to help and encourage rather than make everybody feel down on this. And I think I'm sort of doing this to almost a video to myself, say 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I'd been writing as a composer for two years, a year, 2 years or so, and I wasn't really earning an awful lot of money, and I was feeling pretty despondent. So it's good to know why it's so hard to be a composer. I think it puts things into context, and it also can give you encouragement and a way for the future. That's what this video is intended to do. So first of all, why on earth is it so difficult? I'm looking at my notes down here. So first thing is that there aren't any jobs as composers. There isn't very few composer jobs. You don't look online at Indeed or wherever on job posting sites and find composer jobs as such. Not full-time jobs, really. Okay, they do exist. Game studios, some, right at the high end, there is a very, very, very small number of composers who are residents at game studios or work for Disney or Pixar or whatever, or the big sort of movie studios, big TV production studios. There are a few in-house composers, although my understanding is that even at that level, that really high level, those full-time posts are depleting. You never see anything like that advertised. It's not like applying for a accountancy job or applying for a teaching job or I don't know, a lawyer's job or anything like that, where you, assumably, it's a long time since I looked for a proper job. You look online, you look in the publications or whatever, and you see things advertised. That does not happen for composers. Yes, there are freelance jobs and things advertised on things like Indeed and things, but you can't go out and fill in an application form and become a composer. So that leaves you down the freelance career path. I think a majority of composers are freelance, and the freelance life is difficult. It's unpredictable. There are ups and downs, and you are your own boss, and you make things happen or you don't, and that is really, really tough. I think you have to be a certain personality to do that. The other thing to say is that even as a composer freelancer, there isn't really a career path as such. Or I suppose what the problem is, there are so many different ways that you can get into a composing career. Depending on what you want the end result to be. Do you want to write for TV? Do you want to write for film? Do you want to write for video games? Do you want to write for concert music? Do you want to write, purely electronic music? Do you want to write orchestral music? There are 101,000 different routes, 101,000 different specialisms, and it's really, really hard to say, well, you do this to get you to your end goal, because everybody's end goal is likely to be different. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that it is highly, highly competitive. And in some ways, that could be really demoralizing. And in other ways, I think it's a good thing. I think it's really demoralizing in that all over the place, everywhere, there are great and talented people writing music. This is partly to do with the bar to the profession, or the bar to writing music being lowered over the last few years. There's no two ways about it. In the last 2 decades, with the advent of DAWs and home recording studios, the actual bar to getting into writing music is much, much lower. You can create music on GarageBand. You can create music with free software. Actually, if you have a computer, you can create, in theory, probably saleable music without any outlay, using free VSTs and free software. It would be possible. And also the knowledge to do that is freely available. I think previously I suppose, again, 20 years ago, before the advent of the internet, you had to be you had to go to an institution and learn this sort of thing, or learn from somebody. You had to be mentored. There had to be a face-to-face divesting of knowledge, whereas now you can find anything you want to basically on YouTube. I think you could teach yourself how to be a music producer on YouTube, and PLV Music, whose YouTube channel I would highly recommend. She actually, I think, even has a whole list of YouTube videos that she used to teach herself to become a music producer. So the bar is really, really low. Also, it's really difficult because you need to produce music. Really, you produce music of any quality or anything that's really saleable. You do need a certain amount of skill. It is a specialized skill, even though it's easier to learn it and to get into it. It's something that takes, for most people, I think, a long time to develop, and a long time. It's a continuum of development and progress and learning. It's not something, I don't think, for most people, composing music isn't something that you can pick up in a month or two, or a year or two even. If you're working at a high level, it takes many years, 10,000 hours, although that's not necessarily the right way of describing it, because that's not necessarily true, I don't think. But I think you do need a lot of time, and you need to invest a lot of time to build up your musical skills. And then there's the big problem of, well, music is freely available. It's available all over the place, and a lot of productions, or a lot of places that would use music, can get music for free now. Whether it be freely available on the internet, royalty free or copyright free on the internet. And there's a lot of that, whether it's AI produced. The actual value of music, due to streaming, the actual value of music and the production of music in the public perception is much lower. It's a commodity. It's something that can be bought, something that, would you like to do this for free for your CV? It's that sort of level, unfortunately, which makes it really difficult. Even if you do get paid, particularly in the film world, there's very little. In the indie film world, there's very little money available for creating films. Again, we're not talking about the high level here. We're talking about the vast majority of the sort of mid to low tier in the film industry is extremely tight financially, both in this country and in the States at the moment. There's money in TV, but it's very difficult to get into. The bar is very high. There's money in games, but again, there's a lot of, the games industry is apparently shrinking, although I think overall the thing is growing, but I don't know whether AI is going to have a massive impact on that as well. So it's a really tough one. Just going back to the competitive thing though, I think looking on the bright side, you've got to think, well, actually any job that anybody's going to enjoy doing is going to be competitive. So let's turn this around on its head a little bit to think of the positives to this. So if being a composer is highly competitive, that tells you that it's a desirable occupation. And I can tell you from my point of view that it is. I do earn my living as a composer now, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I can't imagine myself doing anything else. It's not like working. It's a joy. And I was going to say, I wanted to get in somehow, well, nobody goes into writing music or the arts to make money, because we all do it because we love doing it. And I think that is true, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't actually be remunerated for it in a fair way. That's a sort of an aside, I think. But it is highly desirable, so everybody wants to do it. Who wouldn't like to make their living making music? So that makes it something that's worth striving for, I think. That's a clear indicator. It's highly competitive. Thousands of people want to do it. you know it's something that is worth striving for. It's something worth aiming for and pushing towards and really going for. So I think that's the first thing. And I think that's a positive, to be able to be in a position to say, look, I know what I want to do. I want to do this. I know it's a great career. I'm going to really enjoy doing it, is something that's really good. I was listening to in preparation for this, I listened to a video by Guy Mitchellmore from ThinkSpace Education a couple of days ago, and he said that yes, the world is competitive, but they put out a tender, ThinkSpace Education, for a composer to write to a brief for a particular piece of music, and apparently they had several hundred applications, several hundred composers wrote in. I don't remember the exact statistics on this, but there was a large number of composers who missed the deadline. There was a large number of composers who sent in music that was really, really good, but it had nothing to do with the brief. There was a large number of composers whose music was to do with the brief, but wasn't right up at the standard. And I think by the time they'd whittled it down to the people that had actually met the brief, had written the music that they were supposed to, the music was of an acceptable standard, and they'd got it in on time, and the communication and all of the paperwork and etc. and everything was in order, it was actually a very, very small percentage. And I took real, I think took a real sort of positive thing back from that, because I think another reason why it's so hard for us to earn money is that we are very wrapped up in our artistic thinking, writing music, writing whatever we want to write, but very few or fewer composers have the same drive and same motivation when it comes to detail, comes to the business side, finding work, communicating with clients, making sure that you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, keeping to a brief, etc., etc., etc. That is a much, much smaller minority. And the huge number of people that are writing free stuff on DAWs, and, you know, because of this low bar of entry, yes, there's thousands of them, but they're doing that because they're enjoying it, but not necessarily doing the business professional side as well. So the good thing, I think, is that if you have the tenacity, because that's another thing. I mean, let's take it as read that everybody can write great music, but above that, much fewer people have the tenacity to stick at this. And you're not going to earn money or a proper living as a composer for a few years, in my experience. It doesn't happen overnight. It's something that you really have to work out. You have to build up your skills. You have to build up your network. You have to build up your communication. You have to build a business, and that takes years. It took me 3 years, really, before I was earning anything other than beer money. There's many people are going to fall by the wayside. You know, that cuts down the competition. Above and beyond that, so the tenacity thing, you need to not only be honing your compositional skills, but your interpersonal skills as well, your business skills, how you communicate with clients, how you put yourself across, how you listen, how you make sure you hit deadlines, how you go above and beyond what your client is expecting, etc., etc., etc. Those soft skills, those interpersonal skills, those person skills. Not all composers are quite sort of introverted, don't have those, you know, allegedly by popular belief. I don't know whether that's actually true, but I think a lot of people generally don't have those skills. But if you can be one of the ones that rise above that, even if you're an okay composer, if you are tenacious and you have those business skills, you have those interpersonal skills, then you're going to go a long way. And again, it shrinks down the competition again. Which links into being able to separate yourself from your work and be objective as your work as a sort of commodity that needs to be sold. If you can separate your artistic mind from your business mind, and you can actually really focus on your marketing and communicate effectively, again, that will separate you. So I'm trying to think of different things that will separate you out from the competition, separate one out. I firmly believe that for most composers, you will probably find yourself doing 50% writing music and doing musical things and 50% marketing, whatever that means, be it making YouTube videos, making a website, communicating with clients, advertising yourself, reaching out to people, going to networking events, etc., etc., etc. At least 50%. If you can do 50% of that effectively alongside your composer, that again shrinks down the competition, because there'll be a huge number that don't and won't and can't do that. And finally, even if you are an okay composer, but you have some sort of individual voice or individual style or something that sets you slightly apart from the competition, again, that shrinks this down and makes the chances of you actually being successful much, much higher. So, to sum up my slight rambly waffle, yes, it's incredibly hard to earn a living as a composer, but because of that, a huge number of people will fall by the wayside, which leaves the competition open for you and I to take advantage of that, as people that will be incredibly tenacious and will stick with it. I honestly think if half the battle is just sticking at it, thousands of people will give up far too soon. You just don't give up. You just keep on going. You have to be absolutely tenacious. You have to be extremely good on your social, interpersonal, and business skills. You have to be fantastic at marketing and be prepared to put time and effort into learning and carrying through marketing, and that will be at least 50% of your total activity as a composer. You need to also have probably, ideally, some sense of, I don't think I do, so it's maybe not necessary totally, but I think you have to have some sense of individual voice, or something that's you specialize in, something that just marks you out from the competition a little bit that other people can't do quite so well. I probably do have actually a couple of things in that, actually, having thought about it. So you think it through, you might have something that's not necessarily obvious. And I think with those things in place, it is possible to earn a living as a composer, even in today's difficult market. Having said, at the moment, things are really, really hard, particularly in the TV and film industry. I think, broadly speaking, this is a period of massive opportunity. Again, 20 years ago, we couldn't be communicating with and working with people all over the globe. As a composer, you are really catering to a global market. There's no reason really why you can't actually be writing music for anybody and everywhere. It's just a case of making those connections and getting the ball sort of rolling on that, which is much harder easier said than done. But that is the truth. It is a global marketplace, and actually at the moment there is more TV and more media that requires music putting to it being made at this moment than there ever has in any other time in history. It is possible to make a living as a composer, and I don't think you have to be an exceptional composer to do it. You have to be good, you have to be as good as the rest, if not better, but you don't have to be spectacular as a composer to make a living. As important are the skills and the sort of peripheral things that we've talked about today. And I think that whole package is sort of the way forward. If you are a composer, if you've made it to this far, well done, because you must be 15 minutes in now. If you're a composer who is struggling to make ends meet at the moment, I absolutely urge you to take heart, but just to keep going. If you have that faith and you have that belief and that intrinsic desire to make this your living and to make this your career, then if at all possible, just absolutely do not give up. Keep the faith and keep going. Learn, improve, and be tenacious. I hope that was helpful or of some guidance or comfort. I'll put a link to something else that you might be interested in on one side here, and subscribe if you'd like to hear me again. Thanks ever so much for watching. Cheers. Bye bye.